Okay, so chapter 7. I think most of us have already started this one in class, but here we go. So I've posted the pictures of the square roots and the cubed roots, and it is on your Blackboard shell. And if it's not, shoot me an email and I'll send it directly to you from my Google Docs. So the square root, when we have the fractions, we take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom. So the square root of 1, and this negative out front is going to stay there. So the square root of 1 is 1, square root of 81 is 9. On these decimal ones, it's going to be the same square root, but I'd just go ahead and download yourself a handy calculator. 0.0256. It's going to be 0.16. Now, remember when we were doing all the exponent rules, this is not an exponent rule, but it is kind of like one. So when we take the square root of x to the 28th, we're going to do 28 divided by 2, because a square root is the opposite of a square, and a square would be to the second power. So just remember that square roots, we assume it's 2 here. Later on, they're going to give us, like right here, this cubed root one, and well, that's an 8, so that doesn't really matter. You'll see in a second though. So 28 divided by 2, so we'd have x to the 14th. This one, they want you to use a calculator. Do not try and do this in your head. And it says round to the nearest thousandth, so that's your second decimal place. So 1.73. Now find the cubed root of 8. That'll be on that paper that I have for you. The cubed root of 8 is 2. Because 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And roots are the inverse, or the opposite of exponents. So, to be able to do roots, you need to know your powers. So, we have the cubed root of 1, the cubed root of negative 343. So I can have the cubed root of a negative, because a negative times a negative times a negative is still a negative. So I'm going to have negative, cubed root of 1 is 1, cubed root of 343 is 7, I do believe, but we're going to check that. So I'm going to have 3 second cubed root, nope, that's not a cubed root. Where is it? I know where it is on y'all's calculators. Maybe I'll dig out another one, but let's try this. There it is. It's a lot harder to get to on y'all's on this one. So 343. 7. But that should be on your paper as well. Like here, where it's that cube root of x to the 45th, so we'd have 45 divided by 3, which is 15, so it'd be x to the 15th. Here we have the cubed root of negative 125, and that's on your paper, negative 5, and then 6 divided by 3 is 2. The fourth root of negative 256. This one is not a real number, because a negative, here, I'll use 1 for my example. A negative times a negative would be a positive, times negative 1 times negative 1. Positive times negative would be negative. Negative times negative is a positive. We can't have a negative even root. So this one's the fifth root, so it can be negative. And the fifth root, so I'm going to go to my fifth root. 5 negative 1024. Negative 4. They have the sixth root of 4096, so we're going to pull that up. So sixth root of 4096 equals 4. And then 30 divided by 6 is 5. Square root of 169 is 13. And remember, when there's not anything here, it's that 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Square root of a negative 9 squared. So, the first thing we'd do on this is square that inside of it. So negative 9 squared would be 81. And the square root of 81 is 9. Now they're doing the cubed root of a cube. This one, they did the square root of a square, but they squared the negative 9, and a negative times a negative is a positive, and then the square root of that positive gives us the positive 9. Here, this is a negative cubed, so it'd be a negative 343, right? And when we take the cubed root of that negative 343, we get negative 7. Down here, square root of 81 is 9. X squared, the square root of x squared, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Cubed root of 27 is 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Cubed root of negative 64 is negative 4. That's on that paper I gave you. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 24 divided by 4 is 6. 12 divided by 4 is 3. On these, we just take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom. The square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 16 is 4. Alright, same thing. We're taking square root of the top, square root of the bottom. So, 4 divided by 2 is 2. The square root of 25 is 5. 2 divided by 2 is 1. We're only dividing with our exponents. If it's a whole number, we actually do the root of it. So like 5 times 5 is 25, because 5 squared is 25. So the square root of 25 is 5. And I have that paper that I wrote out, and that is on your blackboard, so remember that. Alright, fourth power, so fourth root, so 20 divided by 4 would be 5. And the fourth root of 81 is 3, I believe. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. Let's do it. 3 to the 4th power is, yes, so the fourth root of 81 is 3. So that's 7.1 for everyone. If you have questions over anything, please email me.